Welcome to Frankly Speaking, the podcast that gains access to real and inspiring people. Before I speak to today's guest, I'd just like to make a few announcements. Firstly, I'd like to thank all those who continue to support the podcast. All your likes, comments, and subscriptions are very much appreciated by myself and the team. Mark Wareham for arranging today's sponsor, Luton Town Ladies Youth Football. And of course, I'd also like to thank Raw Media Solutions for all their technical support and advice. If anyone would like to discuss sponsorship for any of their business concerns, please contact us. Or if you have a charitable event that's coming up soon, please get in touch with us and we'll gladly advertise it for you. So let's dig, let's delve, let's discover, let's engage, let's explore, and let's listen to the fascinating life of today's guest, Paul Stewart. Paul, welcome to Frankly Speaking.
Thanks, guys.
Paul, what I'd like to start off with is asking you where you grew up, your early childhood, or if your family. I'm sure the viewers would like to know that.
Yeah, I was born in a place called Wythenshawe in Manchester, brought up on a council estate. It was probably, and still remains, I think, the biggest council estate in Europe. We didn't have a lot of money, to be honest. My dad was a labourer. He was probably out of work more than he was in work, Frank. And my mum worked on a production line folding garments. Yeah. Had two older brothers, Gary and Anthony. But to be honest with you, what we didn't want for, because we didn't know any different. So for us, growing up on a council estate without the trappings, if you will, of wealthier families, didn't really matter, because we were happy kids. All we wanted to do was play football, to be honest. And that wasn't just myself; it was my two older brothers and all the lads off the estate. So any time we got the chance, we'd be out there with a football, pretending to be one of our idols. And in Manchester, you were either blue or red. There was no other choice. There was only one blue in our family, as it happened, my eldest brother. So he took a lot of stick, obviously, because at that time, United were the world famous team, and City was sort of they were struggling to sort of emulate United. So, but like I say, we'd be our favourite players from the team, and we'd play actually on the front, just at the front of our house. There was a green, but we thought it was our Wembley. We were on there, like I say, from morning till dusk, or till mum or dad shouted us in for tea or whatever it was. And who
did you emulate, Paul? Who was your favourite at that time?
I was Joe Jordan, believe it or not, Big Joe. But yeah, it was like I say, I was probably the happiest, luckiest child you'd wish to meet. I was always being a bit of a devil. When the knocker door run, they'd send me to do it, or whatever it was, and anything for a laugh, I would be up front and getting involved in it. So yeah, I was. It was a happy childhood for a while.
Did you represent any football teams locally or at school level?
Well, yeah, I mean, at school, because I showed good promise from a young age, Frank, and I was playing for the school and for Manchester boys and for Lancashire boys. Often I would play for the older age group for the school. I went and had trials for England schoolboys. So yeah, I mean, things were looking promising. And then things, I got to about just before my 11th birthday, and things changed.
All right. I'm assuming this is the point where Frank Roper came into your life.
Well, yeah, I mean, I was playing for the school team, My dad used to come and watch every game that I played, and amazingly, he came to every professional game I played as well. So he never missed a game. He was at every game, and obviously, I was playing for the school team, and there was a coach wandering up and down the touchline asking who's the father of the number 10. I was wearing number 10. My dad, as proud as punch, said it's me. But I've got to be honest, Frank, I'd heard of this team. There were two teams in Manchester at the time that were the best teams. Right. One being, unfortunately, White Hill, which was the notorious Barry Bennell. And the other team was Nova. So it was us and them basically who were dominating the football around Manchester. Well, like I said, I'd heard about the team, and I knew that they went on trips in the school holidays, to places like America and Ireland. And as I said to you, we were lucky if we'd have a day out in Blackpool, or maybe even have a week in a caravan in Wales. That would be what a holiday was. So to think that you might get a chance to go to America or Ireland was something that you can only dream of. So I said to my dad that I wanted to join them when he approached him. Of course, the first concern, which I totally understood, was it going to cost anything, because we couldn't have any more strain on the household budget. No. Things were tough as it was. But he assured my dad that it wouldn't cost anything. So he allowed me to sign for them the next day. We used to sign what we call registration forms back then. We called it Sunday League football, as you probably know.
Yeah, I remember.
Now it's grassroots football. But that's where unfortunately for me, my life sort of changed. And I will say, because it was the pivotal moment, I'll be honest, because like I said to you, you couldn't wish to meet a happier young boy, and straight away into like the first week of me joining, this Frank Roper started coming around the house and bringing gifts for not just for me, but for my brothers and for my parents, and it was like the latest sportswear, the latest football boots. Do you know, I was on third hand-me-downs from my eldest brother when we're talking about football boots or anything of that nature. He would bring takeaway meals from my parents. So within sort of a week, he sort of almost entrenched himself in the family and started waiting for me outside school. And if he didn't take me home, he'd watch what I was doing on the way home. And if I spoke to anyone when I got in the car, he would sort of, he wouldn't be happy about it. He'd be saying, what are you talking to them for? You want to be a footballer, don't you? You have to dedicate your life. And, at 10 years of age, I was confused that, well, why can't I talk to my mates from school? What damage is that going to do to my chances of being a footballer? Well, he started taking a few of the lads out. There was two of us that actually went on to play for England in that team, and 5 that went to play league football. So you can see the enormity and how good the team were. So he would take us out to places like the pitches, 10-pin bowling. Back in the day, believe it or not, Speedway was massive in Manchester, and he'd take us there.
Wasn't it Bellevue? Was it Bellevue?
It was. Yeah, and I think they had the best team as well. So all things like that were things that we couldn't afford as a family, and to be able to go and do this was great. But he started dropping me off last, so he dropped the other 4 kids off maybe, and then I'd be on my way home, and he started making sexual innuendos and telling dirty jokes and asking me how many times I'd masturbated the night before. And I just found it very, very strange. But one thing he did, he insisted on an answer. So being a young lad and not understanding it, I just used to say anything that comes in my head 2, 3, 4 times, just to avoid the uncomfortable conversation in the car. So that got me thinking. Then now we're only 2 weeks into me joining, and he was a coach at Blackpool, or a scout, whichever one you want to call it. And Blackpool were a big team-ish then. They were in the old second division.
Yeah.
So about 2 weeks into it, he said, I was coming down to Blackpool with the other lads to represent Blackpool, playing against local teams. So on the way down, he said, does anyone want to drive the car? Which again, when you're 10 years of age, it's a massive look into the grown-ups world, and everyone, including myself in the car, was eager to drive it. And to drive it, you had to put 1 foot in the passenger side in the front, one foot in the driver's side, and sort of straddle the handbrake, where the handbrake was. There was no such thing as automatic cars back then, and you would lean across him to steer the car. That was what constituted driving the car.
All right.
When it got to my turn, I did exactly what I just said to you then. And when I leant across him, I felt a hand go up my shorts and touch me, and I froze. And it seemed to happen so quick, I'm then confused. Was it an accident because he's changing gear? Then I'd put like the questions that he'd asked me prior, and it didn't sit with me right, but I didn't really know. I didn't really know what to do. By this time, he's convincing my parents that I'm going to make it as a footballer. I'm the best thing since sliced bread. So they're over the moon. They think he's like, he's great. He's going to help. He's going to help our Paul realize his dream, and he's taking him to Blackpool. He's taking him all over. So as I say, about the following week, it was. He's sat at home at my house. He's entrenched by now. He's like a long lost uncle on the settee, and he just says, "Right, we need to do some extra training." Well, again, you can imagine my parents thinking, oh, this is great. Our Paul wants to be a footballer. He's now going to take him extra training to help him realise his dream. He's convincing them I'm going to make it, and I'm the best thing since sliced bread. Well, that first training session, I was taken to a secluded spot close to my home where I was abused for the first time. After he finished abusing me, he whispered in my ear, he said, if you tell your mum or dad or your brothers, I'll kill them. And if you want to be a footballer, this is what you've got to do. So there, the nightmare really began, because I was then systematically, physically and sexually abused every day of my life for 4 years without even a break at Christmas time and holiday times. He was so entrenched in the house. And of course, you don't say anything, because I'm thinking to myself, if I tell my dad will kill him. Yeah. If I say anything, then my brothers won't get these presents of new sports kit. I didn't want them to lose that. But I think more, the overarching reason was I thought that he had the power in his hands to give and take the only thing I ever wanted to do, which was play football. So you end up in a situation where you're trapped, you feel isolated. I was controlled. So if I showed any affection to my parents, to my brothers, once I got in the car, I'd get beaten up. He would say, they don't love you, look at the way they dress you. And he just totally controlled and isolated me. Them trips that I look forward to going to America and Ireland, they did come to fruition. I went 4 times to America and the same to Ireland. First time I went, he took one of my brothers when we got there. And you've got to imagine, this is like the 70s, mid-70s now. So going to America, you couldn't call home, or there was no mobile phones or quick access to speak to your parents. So when we got there, we used to stay with host families. Well, whoever I was staying with, he'd go to them and say that my parents had said that Paul gets homesick. He doesn't like being on his own, and that the mum and dad had asked him to look after me. So he ended up not only staying in the same house, but in the same bedroom. So we used to go in the 6 weeks holidays. So it became a living hell for me for 6 weeks. And he used to threaten. He said, you can't say anything. Your brother's here. I can kill him. We're thousands of miles from home. I can kill you. No, but no. And do you know what? It sounds hard to believe, but as a 10-year-old back then, you know, when a 35-year-old man is threatening to kill you and kill your parents, you believe them. You know, you believe them. And like I said, we couldn't contact home because when we got there, we'd send a postcard home, and after 6 weeks, we'd go home, and the postcard still hadn't arrived. That was the sort of how difficult it was to communicate when you were away in them places. So, as I say, it just became a living hell for me, Frank. About a year into it, I'd stopped speaking, and when I say stop speaking, if anyone asked me a question, I'd give a direct answer, but I wouldn't instigate a conversation. I would say as little as possible as an answer. And even my auntie had recognised the change in me. She'd said, "What's up with our Paul? He didn't speak anymore." Well, I think that was a cry out for me. And on a couple of occasions, my parents walked in after I'd just been abused in our house. And you know what? It was like, I was thinking there's a glimmer of hope here. Maybe they'll spot that something's gone on. Yeah. I was crying. He just managed to convince them that it was because I was so desperate to be a footballer and I thought I wasn't going to make it that I was getting upset. So, you know, it was my heart sunk again. So, as I say, I endured the abuse up until just before my 15th birthday, whereby I just had enough. You know, it became such a painful existence, such a lonely existence. But moreover, you know, the abuse, physical and sexual, every day, it just took too much out of me, Frank. I was getting physically stronger, so his usual MO was to reach across and touch me in the car. This particular day, I just had enough. So I pushed him away, opened the car door, and he slammed the brakes on. And I ran all the way home. I didn't stop. And that was the last time that he abused me. I'd love to say that was when I went on to Blackpool, and my football career was glorious. But I had to endure him every week at Blackpool because of his connections with them. And you know what? I didn't even say anything. And you know what remains one of the biggest regrets? There was another child with him constantly, and I knew what was happening to that child, but I wasn't strong enough to say anything. I was just angry all the time as a young footballer. Certainly my apprentice years at Blackpool, I had disciplinary problems, and I didn't really attribute it to what had happened to me. I thought I'd just blocked all that out and I was just going to get on with my football career. And to be honest with you couldn't say anything to a coach back then. You know, when you were apprentice back in the day, you had to grow up really quick because you were 16 years of age and you were playing with men, grown men. So you had to, and if you showed any weakness, then people would jump on that. You know, that was what the game was like. I was speaking the other day with Andy Gray. Did a podcast, and you know we both agreed about what it was like being an apprentice back then. So, and there wasn't, you know, you couldn't go to a coach and say, "This has happened to me," because you felt it was a sign of weakness. There wasn't the support that there is now. So I just I just continued on that journey. And one thing that never ever wavered with me was my determination to become a footballer. That's the only thing I can say. I mean, I got stripped bare of everything else, right down to the skeleton, if you will, but football. And do you know what? It was my safe area. You know, going on that pitch for 45 minutes as a kid, when I started as a player, going on there, because nobody could touch me, nobody could hurt me. And you know, for me, it became a safe haven. But I'd love to say to you now that when the abuse stopped, it stopped. But you know, I'd be lying to you. You know,
This has probably got to be the longest I've sat and said nothing, because in that short amount of time that you've been speaking, you know, my emotions have been all over the place. This, you know, to say anger, if you like, I would find it hard to describe that, to be quite honest. The way I felt listening to what you're saying, and
I think that makes probably the next bit a bit even more difficult for you then, Frank, because you know, when the abuse stops, it doesn't stop. Now, as horrendous as that abuse was for the 4 years, the impact it's had on my adult life has been far outreaching. And what I mean by that is I've been addicted to Class A drugs on 2 occasions where I've had to go and get help to get off them. I've had drink problems. I've suffered from depression, suicidal thoughts. I've attempted suicide on 2 occasions. I have 3 children. Been with my wife, who sadly passed away last September. I've been with my wife 34 years till then. And, you know, for the kids, it's been difficult because, you know, a father has a God-given right to cuddle and love his children. You know, I have 2 girls and a boy. I've never done it. I've never held them. I've never cuddled them, never told them how much I love them. My wife passed away, as I said.
Yeah.
I never told her I loved her.
I'd like to think she knows you did, Paul. I'm pretty sure she knew that you did. You know, I know one thing, Paul, and I've had numerous messages leading up to today, and I could get quite emotional saying it, to be quite honest. That you are loved by a lot of people. You are loved and admired. I've had people say, "Can you pass on that you know, their support to you?" And that's not just hardened football fans who've got some great memories that you've provided them with. That's as human beings. That's them passing on, you know, their thoughts and supports to you. You know, hopefully they will continue to give you that support.
Since I came forward and subsequently, and especially since the documentary that was aired, you know, Football's Darkest Secrets, I'm overwhelmed by the support, Frank. Yeah. I'm overwhelmed by the public in general. You know, we talk about clubs I haven't even played for that were our arch rivals. They've got in contact and you know, give me messages of support. But I think what's important to get across, and the reason why I tell my story, is what people do not understand, that the impact, not that it just has on the individual that gets abused, but those loved ones around them. You know, my kids didn't understand when I was not at school waiting for them, why I didn't cuddle them, when I couldn't go to parents' evening because I was out my mind on drugs, and why I'd go missing for weeks on end. They didn't understand that. No. I suppose the only light, if you can say that, was when I came forward. You know, because they're adults now. My oldest is 34. I've got a girl of 32 and a young girl of 24. I suppose it gave them a little bit of an understanding why Dad was like he was.
Yeah.
And I don't make excuses for my actions. Nobody grabbed my head and shoved it, down to take the cocaine. Nobody poured the drinks down my neck. I went into that self-destruct mode. But I suppose I have to say that coming forward and now with the work and this, talking about it all the time, it gives my children and family and friends that friends suffered as well because of my action. Gives them an understanding of why I've been like I've been. But I'll never get that time back. When we talk about the abuse, and I say this an awful lot, when the abuse was happening, Frank, I was able to take myself out of that situation and pretend I was playing at Old Trafford or Wembley, So as horrendous as it was, I think the impact it's had on my adult life and those, as I say, loved ones around me and friends and colleagues because of my behaviour.
Yeah. I worked in a school environment years ago, Paul. I was a schoolkeeper, caretaker, janitor. Different people call it different things. And I can remember a point where you couldn't interact with the children as naturally as what you wanted to. And that was despite the fact that I was a father with two daughters and numerous nieces and nephews. And having all these children, and there'd be some very sad children, very one-parent children, and they wouldn't necessarily have a father figure, in their lives, or a man. And you're standing there, and all of a sudden, a little hand, boy or girl, would suddenly put their hand into my hand because they felt, some sort of security. I suppose. Yeah. They say all the teachers, apart from one, I think, were all female, and the helpers were all female. So I was the only, male as such. And I can remember when I had to consciously, not allow that to happen, and that was really difficult because I'd have wanted somebody to give my children some affection and even simple things like before lunchtime, you'd go and clean the toilet, so it was all ready for the children. And I'd have to go and say to a teacher, "Can you please go and check that there's nobody in the toilets?" And they'd say, "Oh, don't be daft, don't be daft." And I'd say, "No. You go and you check those toilets because I'm not going in there." And even today, I said this in a previous podcast. Even walking past the children's playground, I won't even turn my head. I can hear them laughing and joking. I won't even turn my head because there's that, these horrible people of stigmatized men that we cannot act like normal family men and be kind to children. And I know, I've spoken to a lot of people. I don't make no bones about this, Paul. I've served prison time, and I was a listener, and I've listened to some horrendous stories. And I won't go into the time I actually did have to speak to somebody who was clearly a beast as far as I'm concerned. And I take it very, very personal. And listening to you speak earlier, I could really feel that frustration and that rage returning. But if having yourself come on today and giving your account I just think is amazing, mate. I really do. You probably have people telling you all the time, it's a brave thing to do. And I think
I think the reason why I tell my story is because I want people to understand the impact of any sort of abuse, Frank. Yeah. And I'm talking whether it's racial, whether it's bullying. We only have to look at Caroline Flack that got the social media bullying and then takes her own life. people need to know the implications of what they're doing when they're abusing somebody. Now, I tell my story because I know that people will listen, but then I try and educate afterwards, Frank. I talk about, the dangers of social media. I mean, I do a lot of work, or most of my work now, with the EFL, and I deliver to the academies, to the coaches, to the lads in the academies, to the parents, to the host families. And, I talk about every aspect. You post something on social media and then your career takes off. If it's controversial, the media will come back, they will find it, whether it's wherever it is, and you will. And I call it career-threatening decisions. They will berate you in the press, and you don't need that. Just think, think of who you're talking to online. I talk about dressing room banter, mate. When I was at Spurs with the lads, as footballers, we were, some of the things that we did in what we would say as a joking way, we'd isolate what we would say were the weakest individual and, go after them. And, I talk, you've got what is acceptable now as dressing room banter. We've got to be careful again, because the damage you could be doing to that person, and I'm somebody that suffered, so I should have known better. But, I was just lost. And I think I said I was just an empty soul. I went through a football career that I should have enjoyed. And this is, again, what I say to them. I want you to enjoy the experience. You've just seen my stats. I've got an FA Cup winners medal and 3 England caps. I said, I don't even have them on show in my house. And the reason I don't have them on show is when I look at them, they just represent the pain and suffering that I went to reach that goal. And it was far too expensive. I'll be honest, it was far too expensive. So the work that I do now, hopefully, is giving these young footballers and also educating the parents and the coaches a way in which they can go through the careers, because at football clubs now there is support. They have safeguarding teams. Yeah. There is somebody. I say to them, I don't care what your issue is. I say, how small or big it is, go and speak to someone. Go and speak to somebody, because you can enjoy your experience. Even if you don't go on to make it, you can look back and go, I love my time at Barnsley, I love my time at Forest, or whatever club it is that you've enjoyed it. And as an academy, the coaches, imagine the coaches, if the kids are just coming in and all they're concentrating on is the session ahead, they've got a smile on their face, I think you've got better footballers. So that's what I'm trying to do on the back of my own story. I'm trying to make sure that I educate, because it's easy for me to, well, it's not easy, but I can sit there and tell my story and people will get upset and they will feel for me. But I want to be able to educate as well on the back of it. I talk about all aspects, even consent. Listen, I know it's not a subject you want to talk about, but it's important. And then I show them a slide of Adam Johnson, and he said that he thought she was old enough. Yet he picked her up at school. You can ruin your career without, one stupid mistake. One stupid mistake can blow your whole career. And like I say, I went through my career, and my stats say that it was a good career or an okay career, but I didn't enjoy it. I was just an empty soul, and I was self-medicating just to get through it all.
I think that's such a shame. I don't mean, and that's not the right word to use, maybe, but the fact that you were such a successful footballer, and you've got absolutely thousands of fans out there that do remember the Paul Stewart, the footballer. I don't pretend to know too much about your early days, Blackpool and Manchester City. But clearly, me being a Tottenham supporter, I have great memories of Paul Stewart, and of course, we could never have imagined what was going on. We, as you say, we only saw we only saw the fellow, expressing himself football-wise on various football, around the country.
I was really good, Frank, at wearing this mask and cloak and playing a role of a successful footballer, and on the outside, what people saw wasn't at all what was going on inside and behind closed doors. I was struggling so badly. Towards the end of my career at Tottenham, I started taking drugs. I was taking drugs every day at Liverpool when I joined. I mean, I went for £2.5 million back in the day. Was a lot of money.
Yeah.
And it should have been ideal. I got into the England squad. I should have gone there. And I think I only played 32 games for them. I should have played 332, but I'd gone totally into self-destruct mode. And what happens then is you self-medicate. You don't think about anything for a short while, but then you have the downer. Then the downtimes come. Then the depression comes. Then the suicidal thoughts. So what do? You go and self-medicate again. So it becomes a perpetual motion that you don't feel that you can get out of.
No. Well, I don't think we should forget that. You scored a goal at Wembley. You scored a goal. You scored that first goal for Tottenham against Nottingham Forest in the 1991, FA Cup final. So, you should wear that with a badge of honour, Paul, because that was, from what you went through as a boy. And let's remember, you did want to be a footballer. You strived to be a footballer. So you certainly achieved that, my friend. You certainly achieved that.
That was, and to play at Wembley in a final, and we played the semi-final there, which was a fabulous occasion. But as a kid growing up, when I talked about we'd play with our mates on the council estate, and we'd be playing in FA Cup finals. We'd be scoring goals. We'd play Wembley as everybody used to play back then, and I was no different. The FA Cup was a revered trophy back then in the 90s. Every player wanted to play in a cup final because it wasn't just the day and the game. It was the build up to it. Everyone around the club is buzzing. You're doing media interviews, you're doing songs, you're doing everything. Then you've got the whole day where the cameras are following you, and it's just an unbelievable, or was an unbelievable experience. But they classed it as the Clough Gaza final because Gaza was leaving for Lazio, and Brian Clough had never won that domestic honour. So, and then we all know what happened with Paul, a couple of rash challenges and one that damaged his cruciate. I just thought to myself, because he was our talisman, there was no doubt that, I scored the goal here at Blackpool in the first round, which, any team could have won that, Frank. It was the horrible day. It was blustery, as Blackpool is.
Oh, I was there. I don't think I've ever been so cold.
Well, after that, I think Gaza probably single-handedly took us all the way to the final, culminating in that goal in the semis.
Yeah.
But when he got injured and he was going off, I just felt that everybody's shoulders had dropped and that they were thinking, oh, no, Gaza's gone off. We haven't got a chance. And I had this overwhelming feeling of what I'd been through in my life to get to that point.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to let Paul going off. I'm not going to let anything stop me trying to do everything in my power to get back in this game and go on and win it. And when we got the equaliser, there was only one team going to win that game. Then we got stronger and stronger and stronger. And I know it was an OG by Des, but they were faltering, and we were finishing the strongest. So I do believe we would have got that winning goal at some point.
You do realise, Paul, that the next day, if not that evening, that some young boy was running round thinking he was Paul Stewart. Good. Reenacting your goal. Reenacting your goal. But you've probably done all those years before.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah. It's I'd never really thought of it like that. But yeah, I suppose there would have been.
Yeah.
Certainly, from a Tottenham perspective, they might well have done that the next day.
I suspect there wasn't too many Nottingham Forest boys running around trying to score to reenact your goal. That's for sure. No offence to our
No,
listeners.
yeah.
You know. So,
No, I
Paul,
mean, to be honest with you, that's what I say to you, Frank. They didn't like me, the Forest fans, because not only did I score that goal, but in a couple of games in the league, you could say I got Pearce sent off and Roy Keane and Nigel Clough. So they hated me. But that's what I say to you. Since my story, I've even had Forest fans, we hated you when you're at Tottenham, blah, blah, blah. But, and then saying, can't believe what you've done. I don't see it as bravery, Frank, because when I go back to that time when I saw my abuser at Blackpool with another lad, I knew what was happening. And if I had the strength then to say something, because he became a prolific abuser, I might have saved some of the abuse that went on with the other children after me. So I don't feel brave. It's hard to feel brave when. Do you know what? When I walked past him, Frank, I even said hello. That's and it haunts me to think that I didn't go to somebody. I mean, I speak to my ex-boss there now, and I go for a walk with him, a bloke called Sam Ellis, and he, when I came forward, he said, if you'd have told me, Paul, I'd have kicked him out of the club. But as a youngster, then you just don't want to be seen to be a problem player. You just want to get on with what I always wanted to do, and that was to be a footballer. I just wished that I could have enjoyed the experience a lot more than I did.
Well, the way I look at it is, you were an immature young man then, and you were taking the advice of an adult, and older people around you. But now, I won't use that word again. But what you're doing now can potentially save a lot of people. So what you wasn't in a position to do then, you are in a position to do now, and you're spreading that word and you're encouraging other people. And
well, I've dedicated.
Football clubs should be asking, shouldn't they? Football clubs should be asking their youth teams, have they got any problems?
Yeah, they do. They do now, Frank. The game has made, the professional game's made giant strides. Like I say, the EFL got me in to deliver to all the EFL clubs. I do some of the Premiership as well. I do schools and colleges. I've sort of dedicated my time now to. It's not spreading the word. I just want to educate them. Parents. When I look at parents, they drop the kids off at grassroots football. Still, just open the car door and let them run wherever. That's dangerous. Grassroots football were where these people operated. They seen that there was an opportunity, because they are opportunists. They infiltrate, and before you know it, a child is like I was, isolated, feared to say anything, and that's when the abuse starts, because they create that, and the grooming now, Frank. They don't have to do what they did back in the 70s, because we've got this social media, we've got the internet, where they can go pretend to be a peer, somebody of that child's age, and then they're contacting them on all these social media sites. Next minute, it takes about 6 weeks and there's contact. So they don't even have to groom now. So what we've got to be is not complacent, because, as you well know, there isn't a cure for these people. It's not like you can give them a medicine or a tablet. When they get put in prison, they are put with people that are paedophiles as well, because if they go in general population, they'll get beat up. They sit around talking about their exploits and what they've done to kids. So when they come out, they're ready to go again. And these people live amongst us. You know, they're not the dirty old man in a rain mat. They live and breathe amongst us. So we need to make sure that we don't ever get complacent. Do you know that what would be heart rendering for me if I turn the tally on in 20 years' time and I see a glutton of sports stars or from any organisation in their 50s, like I've been, saying what happened to them when they were a child because we didn't take heed of what happened in 2016. And I don't mean just football. I'm talking about any sport, any organisation, because I then think I hadn't done my job. And that's why I dedicate my time to doing this, to hopefully, like I say, not just tell my story, but educate.
Did this Roper fella, I don't like using his name. I don't even... Did he
Don't
ever
worry,
face
mate.
justice? Paul, did he ever face justice?
No. What happened when I came forward in 2016, the police started they started a manhunt, if you will, and they couldn't find him anywhere. And the reason why, and what nobody knew, his actual name was James Francis Roper, but he went by the name Frank Roper. But he died in a hospice in Stockport in 2005. But if I be brutally honest about, you know, because I know you talk about justice, it was never about justice for me. When my wife and kids found out that he passed away or died, they were gutted because they wanted to see justice for the dad. For me, it was about, if I now concentrate on wanting justice, that means he has a hold over me still.
True.
I refuse to have that. I can't change the past. What I can do is have an influence on the future. So the fact that he died and didn't go to prison for his crimes, it wasn't a reason for me to do the work that I do.
Yeah, I think that's admirable, Paul. I mean, that's really admirable that you choose. You choose your own power now. That you don't let somebody else influence your thoughts and your actions. Yeah. I think that's very admirable. So what are you doing now? Clearly you're concentrating on this side of things. You're working for the it's the
EFL.
EFL, yeah, English.
Yeah, but I've worked for the FA. I've worked for the Scottish FA. Like I say, I go to schools and universities, anywhere where I believe children need to be educated and adults. Then I'll go and I'll try and educate them around a lot of the scenarios that can happen. But my main body of work is within football. Right. Since I usually go and visit the football clubs, Frank. But with lockdown, I've been doing it virtually from my home. So I'm still able to, and still I've got Preston North End tomorrow, and then Bristol City on Thursday. So. And you know, hopefully they see value in the work that I'm doing for them. Yeah. Because as daft as it sounds, I enjoy it. And do you know what I think? Because sometimes, because of the subject matter, I get emotional. Certainly when I talk about my family. Yeah. So of a morning when I've got a session on, I think it's possible I would cry today. It's possible I'm going to cry. But you know what? I get up and cry every day, as long as I know that I'm making some sort of difference.
Yeah, yeah. And a book, Paul?
Yeah, well, you know, we talked earlier about the FA Cup Winners' Medal and the England caps. That I don't have them on show. When I finished playing, I was approached on a couple of occasions to write a book. But you know, I'm brutally honest. I'm no Paul Gascoigne, I'm no Gary Lineker. I didn't think that my football career warranted an autobiography, if I'm honest, Frank. But then 2016 came along, I was approached, and I had a story to tell. And it isn't a football type autobiography, although it's mentioned in it because I played the game for 22 years nearly, but it's really about a young boy's journey through abuse what effects that abuse had on him in adult life. It has inserts from a family, the effect it's had on them. So it's really the story of what we've talked about today, and I'm more proud of that than any of the medals that I won in my football career, because again, I've done that in the hope that people that read it helps them. So
what's the name of the book, Paul? Sorry to interrupt.
Well,
the name of the
it's
book?
all right. It's called Damaged because that's what I looked at it as. That's what it did to me. It damaged me, so I called it Damaged. Paul Stewart, my story. And like I say, the hardest thing when you write a book, I guess, for me, it was I wanted to get my voice across. So it took some time to come to fruition, purely and simply because I'd send it off the chapters and then it'd come back in a language that I didn't speak, and I'd say I don't talk like that. That's not how I talk. I want my voice to come through that book so people can understand. And I think we eventually got there, but I think that was the most challenging part of writing the book.
Right. And is that available on Amazon, Paul?
I think only paperbacks left on Amazon, mate, now, but it is available on Amazon, yeah.
All right. Oh, that's good. That's good. And so are there any other plans that you've got? Are there any other things that you'd like to do? Or are you just going to concentrate on where you are at the moment?
I guess my life has changed dramatically since I lost Bev. My outlook is a little bit different. I have a granddaughter that I want to spend time with. I want to keep on doing the work that I'm doing, Frank. If I'm honest, I've got a little other projects that I'm working on, but it's all regarding safeguarding. Everything that I do now is I do some work with a foundation which would be good for people to hear, called the Street Soccer Foundation. I'm an ambassador for them, and what they do is they work with homeless, so they do 10-week programs with professional Premiership clubs. We're working with Liverpool, Tottenham, a number of clubs, and what they do is we get a number of homeless, or they might be sofa surface, or they might have challenging lives, and we bring them to the club. They have coaching in the morning with the FA European badge coaches, and then in the afternoon we go in the classroom and we mentor them into how to maybe fill in an application for a job, how to get more confident when they're in that scenario. So we're trying to get them, these forgotten individuals, as we call them, integrated back into society. So yeah, I'm very much involved in that, which there is information on my website there about that, Frank.
Well, what we do, Paul, I know there's some very sinister things, that surround social media, and but also that it can be used for some more positive things as well. So when we finish this conversation, I'll take some more details from you, such as your website,
no worries,
and any of the groups, and via the various football sites, etc.
Yeah,
we can spread the word, so to speak.
Can I mention the child line then? Because what I did was, on the back of the documentary, because of the overwhelming support, I set up a GoFundMe page for Childline, because during lockdown, and I know when we talk about the sports arena, if we will, where we were abused, but it's mainly in the familiar home, as everybody knows. And during this lockdown, there have been children suffering. So Childline is a line that they can ring confidentially and speak to somebody. And I thought it was important in this era and this situation that we're in, to try and raise some money for them, because people were so generous. So I that's still running. I think we're up to about $6,500. I only originally put 5K as a target, and we reached it in 2 days. So I've kept it open to see if we can get to 7K. I'll probably align myself with that charity as well,
right?
With anything else that I go forward and do, because for me, I look at it this way. I wish it was around when what was happening to me. I wish I'd been able to speak to. So that's important as well.
Well, as I say, when we finish up, we'll any of those organisations, anything you support, let us know, and via social media and various other contacts that we get, YouTube, etc. We can certainly help with that, and only too gladly, I stress.
Thanks, Frank.
Well, Paul, you've been great today. I really appreciate you coming on a personal level. I certainly appreciate it, and I'm sure all the viewers will. And all those you've previously helped, and all those you're currently helping, and those in the future, because we can make reference to this. You're giving people an opportunity to point them towards the lights of today's conversation, and hear it from somebody that's experienced this. And that's what this podcast is very much about. We say we want to speak to real people and inspiring people, and you've done that on different levels. You're a real person. You grew up on a council estate. You achieved your dream, albeit it was sullied by some beast, but you still did it. You still achieved it, and what you're doing today, again, you're trying to achieve something, and I really do sincerely believe you are doing that. You're achieving that, So again, I'd like to thank you very much. I'm just going to make a few announcements, Paul. If you can stay with us, and as I say, we'll.
Well, can I just thank you for having me on? The more I can spread the word anyway, Frank, it's obviously, hopefully, helping others. So, it's been my pleasure. I am open and honest. I'd like to think that everyone sees that, but it's been a pleasure, honestly.
No, you've been yourself, and that's, as I say, that's what we want. We want people to be themselves. We want people to speak frankly, and you've certainly done that, and we really do appreciate that. And of course, we wish you all the best for the future, Paul, and thanks for all the wonderful memories, mate. Thanks for all the wonderful memories.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm just going to make a few announcements. Well, firstly, of course, I'd like to thank Paul for all his fascinating insights to his life and what he's going to be doing in the future, and hopefully we can help him in some way to achieve that. Again, I'd like to thank all our viewers, our subscribers, and I'd also like to thank Luton Town Ladies Youth Team for sponsoring us today, and of course our usual friends at Raw Media Solutions for all their technical support and advice. But again, I'd like to stress, what a fascinating interview it's been with Paul, and let's all send him our love and our best wishes, and do whatever we can to support him in the future. Paul, all the best.
Thanks, Frank.
All the best.
Thank you.